And thank you for staying with us. We're here at EWTN's continuing coverage of the World Meeting of Families. We now want to take you to a very special address by the Archbishop of Los Angeles, Jose Gomez.
Monseñor Rutilio, muchas gracias. Buenos días a todos.
Bishop Rutilio, thank you very much, and
¿Cómo están?
good afternoon. How are you all?
¿Cómo le va? ¿Desayunaron bien?
How was your
La misa
breakfast?
estuvo bonita, ¿no?
The Mass was beautiful, was it not?
All right. Gracias a usted. Me da mucha alegría estar con todos ustedes esta mañana.
It's a great joy to be
Aquí en
with me this
este
morning.
encuentro mundial de
this
familias aquí en
World Meeting
Filadelfia.
of Families in
Es un
Philadelphia.
momento de gracia para todos
It's a time
nosotros,
of grace for all of
especialmente
us,
porque
especially
tendremos la presencia del Papa
because
Francisco
we
este
have
fin de semana.
Pope Francis with us this weekend.
Nos llena de entusiasmo estar aquí todos juntos, ¿verdad?
We are filled with enthusiasm to
Ver
be
a
here
tantas
today.
personas, a tantos
There's
jóvenes,
so many people, so many young
especialmente
people,
para
especially,
celebrar la familia,
celebrating the
la
family
importancia que tienen en la
and the
iglesia
importance
y en
that it
nuestra
has
sociedad.
in our church and in society.
Ya en unas horas,
In just a few
vendrá
hours,
el Papa
Pope
Francisco.
Francis will be here.
Por lo tanto, como digo, es un día especial.
Therefore, as I said, it's a very special day, and I feel very honored to be here with all of you.
Acabo de tener el honor de estar con el Santo Padre
I was just with the Holy Father in
para
Washington
la
for the
canonización de
canonization
nuestro primer santo
of our
latino de
first
Estados Unidos, el
Hispanic
gran misionero de
priest of the
California,
United States,
ahora San Junípero Serra.
Saint Junipero Serra, the great missionary of California.
Por eso, al comenzar nuestro
For this
diálogo
reason, as we begin our dialogue today, I would invite
hoy,
you
a que invoquemos a nuestro nuevo santo,
to pray
quien
to our
tenía una
new
gran
saint,
devoción a Nuestra Señora
who
de
had a
Guadalupe,
great devotion to Our Lady of
y
Guadalupe,
que trabajó tanto
and
para
who
proteger a las
worked
mujeres,
so much to
los
protect
niños,
women,
las
children,
familias, y
families,
la promoción de la familia de Dios.
and the promotion of the
Hoy
family
me
of
pidieron
God.
que hablara sobre la dimensión familiar
Today, I'm going
de
to
la
talk to you about
inmigración en
the
este país.
family dimensions of immigration
y
in this
considerar el
country,
impacto de las
and
políticas de
considering
inmigración sobre las
the
familias.
impact and considering the impact
Pero
of
antes quisiera dar
immigration
un poco de
policies on the
contexto
family. But I would like to
para
give a little bit of
nuestro diálogo.
context first for this dialogue.
Como sabemos,
As we know,
este verano la atención mundial ha estado puesta sobre la crisis de refugiados en Europa.
there is a lot of attention about the
Creo que
refugee
todos
crisis
hemos
in
estado
Europe.
pasando por ello.
We all have been praying for
Creo
them,
que todos entendemos
and I think that we all
que es una
understand that it
tragedia
is a
humana
tragedy, a
con
human
dimensiones
tragedy
históricas.
with historic dimensions.
Ayer tuve la
Yesterday,
bendición de
I
hablar
had
un
the
ratito
blessing
con
to
el
speak
arzobispo de
with
Damasco en
the
Siria.
Archbishop of Damascus
Y me
in Syria,
contaba
and he told me
Lo que están pasando, una
about what
gran
is
tragedia por la
happening
guerra
there,
que tienen ahí.
the tragedy because of the war
Cómo
that is
más
taking
de la
place,
mitad de los
and how more than
habitantes de
half of the
Siria ya
inhabitants
han
of
salido
Syria
de ese país.
have fled the country.
Es tristeza
The
como
sadness
consecuencia
as
de
a
la guerra.
consequence of the war.
Decenas de miles de personas,
Dozens and thousands of families, children,
enfermos,
old people, the
todos
sick,
huyendo de la
all
violencia de
fleeing
la
from
guerra,
the violence of war,
buscando una nueva vida
looking
en
for a
tierras
new
que no son
life
suyas.
in lands that are not their own.
Pero hay algo que tenemos que recordar.
But there's something that we need to remember.
Estas crisis mundiales
These worldwide
no
crises
se limitan solamente a
aren't-
una parte u otra del
are
mundo.
not limited to just
En
one
este caso,
specific part of the world, in this case, just to
a lo
Europe.
largo y a lo ancho del planeta
All
existen
over the
movimientos
planet, there are
masivos de pueblos
massive
forzados por la
migrant
inestabilidad
movements
política,
taking
por
place
la pobreza
because
y
of
la violencia.
political turmoil, violence, poverty.
Casi todas las partes del
In,
mundo
in almost all parts of the
vemos
world,
esa
we
movilidad
see
masiva
this massive mobility
y la migración
and immigration and migration of
familias
peoples,
enteras,
entire
claro,
families,
muchos niños.
and of course, many children.
De hecho, este es uno de los signos de
In fact, this is one of the signs of our
un signo de
times,
que nuestro mundo
a
está
sign that our world is changing,
que las naciones están cada vez
that
más
nations
interconectadas
are
por la
ever
realidad
more
cotidiana de
interconnected
la
because of the
globalización.
daily reality of the global economy.
Personas se mueven a todos lados.
People move all over the
Y
place.
la realidad es que esta dinámica
And the
va a
reality
seguir
is that
sucediendo
this
en todo el mundo.
is going to continue happening all over the
Y
world.
creo que todos entendemos
And I think that we all need to understand, and that we should understand, that our governments, the leaders, the business leaders, and citizens in general,
debemos tomar en consideración
we must
el hecho de que la
take into
inmigración
account that
es un
immigration
desafío
is a
que
challenge
todos vamos a enfrentar en la medida
that we are all going
que
to
se
face
vuelva cada
as
vez
much
más global.
as long as our economy continues to become more global.
Dice
Pope Francis
que
says
el mundo está-
that the
en
world
el mundo todo está conectado.
is all connected.
Es verdad,
And that is true.
es la realidad.
That's the
Está
reality.
cada vez más y más
The world is increasingly more interconnected.
y eso nos está llevando
And this is taking
que
us
algunos han llamado
to what some have called
de las civilizaciones.
the clash of
Nuevos
civilizations,
encuentros,
new encounters between peoples and cultures
estilos de vida.
and lifestyles.
El desafío para la iglesia,
The challenge for the
el
church,
desafío para la
the
comunidad
challenge
mundial
for the world
es
community is
el siguiente.
the following.
¿Cómo vamos a responder
How are we going to
al
respond
otro, a las
to
otras personas?
others, to other people?
¿Los vamos a ver como extraños?
Are we going to see them as strangers, as competitors, as rivals?
¿Los vamos a ver y nos vamos a ser indiferentes
Are we
a
going
sus
to be
necesidades?
indifferent to their needs, to their dreams and aspirations?
La globalización
The
ha
globalization
hecho a todos prójimos,
has made us all neighbors, neighbors to one another.
pero la globalización
But globalization
es solamente un
is
proceso económico y tecnológico.
only an economic and technological process.
No, perdón. Pero la globalización no es
Excuse me,
solo
globalization
un
is
proceso
not
económico y
only
tecnológico.
an economic and technological
Es
process.
una realidad.
It is a reality.
Es una realidad que nos
It's a reality
debe llevar
that
a
should
ser más amigos los unos de los
lead us to be friends more with each other.
Y sobre todo,
And above all,
si entendemos
if we
que
understand
nuestra
that
misión
our mission
en la iglesia,
in the church,
entendemos que nuestra fe
if we understand that our faith brings
a
us
proclamar
to
más
proclaim more clearly
claramente la paternidad de
the
Dios
paternity, the
sobre toda la
fatherhood of
humanidad.
God over all of
Proclamar
humanity,
que Dios es el
to
creador de
proclaim
todas
that
las
God is
cosas
the creator of all things,
y que ha creado a los
and
hombres
that
y
He has
mujeres
created
por
men
amor,
and women through
dándoles
love, giving
dignidad
them dignity
en su vida
in their lives,
y llamándolos a vivir como una familia.
and calling them to live as a family, as brothers and sisters, children of God.
En esta realidad de la globalización,
In this reality of globalization that we are experiencing, I think that this is the most basic thing in the proclamation of the gospel.
en estos tiempos de tensión
In these times of global tensions between cultures
y grupos
and
religiosos,
religious groups,
creo
I think that our role as Catholics and as members of the church
debe ser el de
should be
restaurar el sentido de
to
que Dios es nuestro
restore the sense that God is our creator and that we are all part of the one family, the one human family, with equal
creador, con
dignity
un destino trascendente.
and with a transcendent destiny.
Nuestra proclamación, pues,
Our proclamation then is, in reality,
sobre la familia.
about the family.
Es un
It's
evangelio
an-
de la familia.
It's a gospel of the family.
Y el plan familiar de
And
Dios
God's plan for the family, it's God's plan for the family and for creation, for humanity.
Estas reflexiones
These
iniciales,
beginning, initial reflections can
para entender un poquito mejor
help us understand a little bit better
de
the,
la inmigración
the reality of immigration
en el contexto de los
and the
Estados
family
Unidos
in the
y todo
context
el
of the
continente
United States
americano.
and of the entire American continent.
Como les he estado diciendo,
As I have been telling
creo
you,
que podamos pensar
I don't
sobre
think
la
that we can
inmigración en
think
este
about
país
immigration in this country
sin ser conscientes
without being
de los patrones más
aware
amplios y las realidades de la
of the
globalización.
larger patterns and realities in
El desafío que
globalization.
tenemos como iglesia
The challenge that we have as a church in the United States is insisting that this issue of immigration is not only a political issue or economic issue. It is an issue about concrete people, concrete families, people who are suffering, experiencing difficulties. So for me, immigration is an issue of family values, as we all know. Right now, as we all know, in this country, there are mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, who, in trying to seek a better life, are dying in the deserts on both sides of the border. There are also mothers and children who are imprisoned for long periods of time in our detention centers, in our immigration detention centers. And that's, in reality, that's the name that we give to the prisons for our undocumented immigrants. And we also, as we have thousands of people in these prisons, including entire families. It is truly a tragedy, because the only thing that they're trying to do is seek a better life for their children, for their families. Another issue that affects the family is, about which people often don't think, is the impact of immigration on family stability. To put it very simply, it is very difficult to keep the family together when they're living on the margins and in the shadows of society, as many of you have experienced or are experiencing. Undocumented immigrants in our country are a sort of permanent underclass. Once again, I'm not talking about only statistics, about concrete people, instead about concrete people. I see it every day in our country, I see it every day in Los Angeles, and I'm sure that that is the experience throughout this country. They are the people who work in our yards, who clean our offices, who work in the service industries and restaurants, who work in the fields as farm workers. And sadly, so many of our brothers and sisters in this country are used to this. Perhaps comfort and lack of interest leads us to a certain kind of passivity towards the urgency of the situation of these brothers and sisters, that they might live a normal life. And the sad reality is that these people don't have any rights. They don't have Social Security. They're exposed to unjust laws. And what's very sad also is, because of the political situation in our country, all of these millions of people have no reason to expect that things are going to change and get better anytime soon. And that is very sad, and that is not right. In my experience as a priest in Texas, Colorado, and now in Southern California, I have been able to meet many of these people, like all of us who know many of them, who are in this similar situation. We've seen them, we see them every day in our parishes, in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and in each of the dioceses of the United States. Men and women, families who actively participate in parish life and who are very good Catholics and who strive to live their faith. They are the ones who are suffering the most, and it pains us, our hearts. For this reason, it is important that we realize that the issue of immigration is not something political or economic, as we all know. And I believe that our duty as Christians and Catholics is to help our brothers and sisters to understand more clearly the reality of immigration in our country, and that each one of us understand the urgency that this country, that we be leaders in changing the mentality of this problem here and around the world. If not, we will become more and more used to seeing others as just others and not as our brothers and sisters. 2/3 of all undocumented immigrants in this country have been here for more than 10 years. And almost half have a home with their spouse and with their children. Again, we're not talking about statistics, we're talking about reality. The immigration, the reality of immigration, people who are sons and daughters of God. In the last 6 years, in this country, more than 2 million people have been deported. It is clear that we are talking about many families that have been separated, many children without their parents, many spouses separated. This is the face of the immigrant family. Our Congress this week, when we are reflecting on the importance of family as the domestic church, that we see the family as the fundamental cell of society, and that many of us have had the great blessing of having a stable family. When we think about the consequences of the lack of a just and appropriate immigration policy, we see the sad consequences, especially in the family. It is the face of the children, of the child who is wondering if he will ever see his mother or father again. It is the face of a wife who suddenly realizes that her husband will not be coming home for dinner and that perhaps he will never come back.
Vemos claramente en la realidad de las consecuencias de la falta de una política migratoria justa.
Do we see the consequences then of the lack of a just immigration policy? The consequences, especially, are the dissolution of the family. But that's why we all have to be very committed, first through prayer, and then through our positive action by helping our brothers and sisters in this country and around the world to understand that the immigration situation is a humanitarian one.
No podemos estar pasivos.
We cannot remain passive, neither here nor in other parts of the world. Pope Francis has given us a great example his first example, travel outside of Rome, was to a southern Italian island to be with immigrants who are coming from Africa. We need to go out like the Holy Father is teaching us, to seek others out, to be with them. And as long as we feel this urgency to face this reality with the brothers and sisters who are around us, not only with those who are near us, but also with those who don't seem to understand that immigration is a human reality. And so, what should we do? Obviously, these are very complicated issues. But what is clear is that we must talk more about these issues, relate them to the issue of globalization around the world, and the immigration waves of immigrants in our own continent. And we need to talk about just social justice and the inequality all around us, and be more active and participating, speaking about education, economic development, about violence from drug trafficking and human trafficking. This is a human issue about people, not just a mere legal question. We have to see that the laws in our country are just, that the borders are secure, and if we have policies that help immigration, and just as we have laws on the market and on business, we also need to have laws that deal with migration and immigration because of all the different dangers that exist, other tragedies that happen. But in some way, especially in our country, we have to give the example that these immigration issues can be resolved. We have to find ways, creative ways, to promote secure ways of immigration, safe immigration. But we also, the most important thing perhaps at this time is that we need to regain the humanity in our conversations. I recently read an article about Saint Juniper Serra, and someone who, an article in the Wall Street Journal, and that said that in order to reflect more on his human dignity, and because of his suffering from cancer, he decided to walk. And he recently went on the trail of Father Junipero Serra in California. And Saint Junipero Serra walked many, many miles during his life, many miles. Sometimes we ask ourselves, well, when was the last time that we walked? That we took a walk, or that we took a walk as a family. And he said that by walking, which, today is so uncommon because we're all so busy all the time, it gave him the chance to think about God and about himself and his family. And physically, it helped him as well to regain some of his strength from his cancer. And yesterday I met somebody who said to me that he has the habit that they have the habit as a family of taking a walk every afternoon. And as you know, many people here in this country have a dog, and so they also had a dog. And I don't have a dog, but that's because I live in downtown Los Angeles. But his family takes a walk every day, and that's a time for them to talk together as a family. And she told me, and I feel like I'm at home. And if I sit down at home and try to talk to my kids, they don't tell me anything. But if we go and take a walk, then the conversation just kind of happens naturally. So we need to regain humanity of our conversations. And that is because this is an issue about people and families. And I don't think that anybody right now, at least not any politician in this country, really understands that the immigration problem is a family problem. And I think that this is our mission, is to remind our politicians, the media, our neighbors, invite them to understand that immigration is something that affects the family. We have to help everyone to see that immigration, first of all, is something dealing with our common humanity. All these people who are coming out of Syria, who are coming out of the Middle East, are people like us. Men and women, parents, fathers, mothers, children, families, the same. When last year we had so many children coming to the United States on the border from Central America and Mexico. It was incredible. And we tried to do everything that we could to welcome them and help them. This is a humanitarian issue. So what's important is that these people are sons and daughters of God, in no way different from us, or from our own children, from our own nieces, nephews, parents, or grandparents. I would like to end with another brief story about a girl who wrote me a letter and asked me to give it to Pope Francis. Her name is Jersey, and she lives in Los Angeles. And she gave me her letter and says that her father was in one of those detention centers, and he was in danger of being deported. She wrote the letter by hand, in pencil. She's about 10 years old. And the letter said, "Dear Father Francis," in reference to the Pope, "today is my birthday. What I would like for my birthday is that my father would be with me. And he hasn't been with me for a long time. For my last two birthdays, my father works in construction, and he never has quit working. When he comes home from work, he's very tired. Now my father is in jail. The police are going to deport him. And I wonder, if this happens, how will my life be affected? I am trying to find a work with my mother and my brothers. A girl, 10-year-old girl. Since you are close to God, I ask you to help my family." And at the end she says, "Please pray for my grandfather Felix, because he is very sick. He was very sick and he died. Sincerely, Jesse." This is the face of the families calling for immigration reform. And if we knew a child whose parents had been deported, I think that we would agree that we need to find solutions and not remain indifferent. Thanks be to God, her father was not deported. He returned to Los Angeles. I saw them this weekend during a special mass. But he still does not have papers, and is in danger of being deported at any time. The good news for us is that if we all continue working together to make others see that this immigration issue is a global question, and that is a matter of the family and of people who are just like us, and then we will respond, and we will help people like Jessie and her family. I would like us I wish that we would respond with great generosity, helping each other as children, as sons and daughters of God. Thank you for your attention. And I'm very happy that we are here celebrating the family and accompanying the Holy Father in his pastoral visit. Let us continue working together so that immigration reform in this country will become a reality, and so that all those men and women who are here already can feel truly that they can live like children, like sons and daughters of God. God bless you.
And there we have it. That was Archbishop Gomez of Los Angeles, and that was his talk. And I'm Doug Keck, now joined on set by EWTN's chairman of the board and CEO, Michael Warsaw. Also happens to be my boss. Great, Michael. Great to see you here.
Good to be with you. Thank
you. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, here we are at the World Meeting of Families. We've been here all week. I know you were in Washington for some of the events. We can talk a little bit about that. You've come here now to finish off with the World Meeting of Families. But we've been involved with the World Meeting of Families from the very beginning because of our relationship, and particularly your relationship with Archbishop Chaput, right?
That's right. When the conversations first began between Archbishop Chaput and the Holy See about Philadelphia hosting the World Meeting of Families, it really wasn't too long after that the Archbishop and I talked about EWTN's role in this, how EWTN could be of service to the World Meeting of Families and to the Archbishop in presenting this great event and really making it a global event. Obviously, for the Archbishop and for the organizers, one of their concerns throughout was that not everyone who might like to attend would be able to attend, particularly people from other parts of the world and the poorer parts of the world. So through EWTN, I think we were able to create a situation where people literally around the globe could participate in this event, could be a part of this event, whether it was through television, radio, or online. And that was really the Archbishop's hope and dream as we began those discussions, some 2 years ago, I think. Yes,
in fact,
yes.
And because he wanted it to make sure it was a Catholic event.
That's right.
And was covered as a Catholic event, right?
That's right, exactly. It was not, he did not want it to be seen just simply as a news event, although what's been said here, what's been happened here has made news, and that's good and that's important. But he really wanted the event to be presented through a Catholic lens and with a Catholic sensibility and a Catholic understanding. And obviously, EWTN is ideally suited to, and really uniquely suited, for that matter, to be able to be the outlet for that.
And we're having, obviously here, we're broadcasting in English right from here. We're broadcasting in Spanish as well. We also have events available in German.
Exactly.
And that's how we do most things. Now, one of the big, I guess, challenges for our team, led by Peter Gagnon and Steve Beaumont on the English side, Enrique DePratt, Pablo Pilco on the other side, and our World Over team led by Raymond Arroyo and his papal coverage team, and EWTN News Nightly, and all of our news things, is the fact that the Pope was coming here all along, but he added in a trip to Cuba, and these other visits, including the one in D.C. that you were at. And so suddenly,
early on, it was sort of the hope of the organizers here at World Meeting of Families that it would begin, the events would begin with the Pope here in Philadelphia, and then perhaps a visit to the United States would follow on. But obviously, with the Synod coming up, I think the Holy Father felt it was better to do it in the week before and lead up to this. But I thought it was interesting in his address to the U.S. bishops in Washington on Wednesday. He made it clear that his reason and his purpose for being here in this country was about the family,
right.
and that was his focus. And so I think it's certainly then appropriate with that focus to come to this, climactic moment of the World Meeting of Families that we'll see this weekend with the events with the Holy Father.
No, and I believe that that's obviously true, like you say. And what's important is for us to be able to provide the kind of coverage that people have become accustomed to of two major events happening simultaneously in multiple languages. Not only takes the effort of a lot of hardworking people, but it also takes a lot of prayers and, quite honestly, financial support as well, right?
Absolutely. These are very difficult and complex undertakings to execute for anyone. And they certainly are very expensive undertakings for us to execute. And I'm struck sometimes by the fact that some of the secular news networks, that put a lot of coverage into this event and to the Holy Father's visit this whole week. You know, have teams of hundreds of people working on these events. You know, that's not the case with us. We're obviously the miracle of the loaves and fishes that we can do with a small number of people, an extraordinary job, and across many platforms and many languages.
Right, we're lean and serene. We accomplish both at the same time. Now, you were up in Washington, and you were actually at the event. You know, the rest of us were watching on television. You were actually there when the Holy Father spoke to the bishops?
At the no, I was not at the bishop's event. I was at the Sarah canonization mass.
Okay, at that particular one.
That,
but
yes.
Were you struck by, and do you think people were taken aback by the fact that he made the family clearly from the beginning to the end, and that he started off at the White House talking about religious liberty? Also, what was our take? You know, you've been totally involved with our whole relationship with the HHS mandate and us standing up for our beliefs as a Catholic organization. And certainly the Little Sisters of the Poor have been there taking the lead as well, and people have read a lot about them. And he stopped to see them. And was that scheduled? It wasn't scheduled?
It was not scheduled. The visit to the Little Sisters of the Poor was not scheduled. And while I'm not aware that in any of the talks that the Holy Father gave, he specifically addressed the issue of the HHS mandate as such, I think it was very clear that by making that gesture of going to the Little Sisters of the Poor house there in Washington, in the shadow of the Basilica, and to visit those little sisters, it was a very clear statement of support and encouragement for not just their apostolate and what they do and the great work that they do, but also in their fight to maintain their capacity to be truly Catholic and to be free from this government mandate. Certainly, the Little Sisters of the Poor have been a very well-known opponent of the mandate, just as EWTN has been throughout. And so I think for the Holy Father to do that, to make that gesture, you know, says a lot. And you know, and many people will often say, well, in some ways, Pope Francis is very much a pope of gestures, a pope of symbols, and so that sometimes he communicates much more powerfully through those gestures and symbols than other ways.
Than saying specifically about this or that. And
so I think that was certainly a great thing to see and a surprise. And a wonderful encouragement, not just for the Little Sisters, but I certainly took great encouragement in terms of our own situation with waiting for the Circuit Court of Appeals to issue the decision in our own case. But I don't think it was a surprise to anyone that the family has been such a central theme of the Holy Father's visit throughout, that it's something that he's obviously addressed in some form or fashion in virtually all of the addresses he's given to this point. You know, it's clear that the family and the issues of the family are central to his papacy and to his concerns.
And of course, the thing is that sometimes when people say, you know, he wants to be inclusive, they see that as kind of opening the gates up to anything somebody decides to do, and that's not what he's talking about at all. And that's what's clear when he talks about the family, when he talks about the fact of a man and a woman and the nature of that, and to some degree how that's under attack, and staying away from this kind of gender identity politics that are out there. He's trying to make it clear that yes, we're being open, but we're being open to the truth.
Right, precisely. No, I think there's no question that not just in this visit, but you know, throughout his papacy, you know, he's been very clear in his support for traditional marriage and the family, and that's been an important goal for him.
And we're here at the World Meeting of Families as we're wrapping up here on Friday. The papal visit continues, of course. People will be able to see that this weekend. The Holy Father, Saturday and Sunday, will be here for multiple events that will kind of culminate, you know, this World Meeting of Families, and for the families here who've come to be able to participate with him. But that's not where it ends, because pretty soon, a couple of weeks, is the beginning of October, right? You've got the actual synod that everybody's been talking about. We had the extraordinary one last year. Now we're going to be dealing with the synod. Right. And EWTN has plans to cover that as well, right?
Yes, we do. We'll be providing live daily updates in multiple languages across all of our platforms, so that people will understand and know what the discussions are from the Synod Hall. what's being considered there, and to get that through, again, a uniquely and specifically Catholic filter.
Right.
I had the opportunity in the last couple of days to spend some time with some of the cardinals, and who are members of the Council of the Presidency of the Synod, as well as some of the delegates to the Synod. And it was clear from each of them, they all referenced the fact that they see this trip and this World Meeting of Families as really a prelude to the Synod discussion. So I think for us and for our viewers and audience around the world, what been able to see and experience through EWTN over this last week of the visit here really is that preparation for what we'll be presenting over the next several weeks with the Synod coverage.
It's also exciting, too, due to your efforts recently over the last year or two, having to do with CNA and our expansion there. We've expanded our news outlets in Rome itself. So not only are we feeding EWTN News Nightly and we're having CNA, now we have an Italian, basically, version of CNA. Or
Exactly. Well, we with the bringing Catholic News Agency and the ASI group, which was Spanish and Portuguese language Catholic news services, bringing them into the EWTN family earlier in the year has allowed us then to be able to launch Oggi Stampa a few weeks ago, which is an Italian language news service reporting and doing coverage within Italy and for Italians. But that's content that then can be repurposed in other languages and other platforms. In the next 2 weeks, we'll be launching actually a German language service as well. That'll be a part of that.
Right?
Exactly, right at the beginning of the Synod, that service will launch and will be, I think, a great blessing to people in the German-speaking regions of the world where we already have a television channel and we're already very well distributed there. It will be, I think, a supplement to that so that people can get a clear, unadulterated Catholic view of these events.
And they can know that we're on the ground where it's happening, reporting what's going on.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank
Michael,
you for
it was
everything.
great to see you. And thank you for joining us here. That's the chairman of the board and CEO, Michael Warsaw of EWTN. And we're wrapping things up because this concludes EWTN's coverage of the World Meeting of Families. Make sure you stay with EWTN for our continuing coverage of the papal visit, as we indicated, including his trip. He's coming here to Philadelphia Saturday and Sunday. Raymond Arroyo and his papal posse will be all over that. And in fact, they will be here on Saturday and Sunday covering the papal visit here in Philadelphia. And for my co-hosts throughout the week, the lovely Jeanette Benkovic, and all the crew here in Philadelphia, Peter Gagnon and his whole team, Enrique Duprat, and of course, John Kuklinski, and in Birmingham, Steve Beaumont and James Faulkner, their whole team. Thank you for joining us.